Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today we're going to be using some beautiful vintage photos in our art journal layout. Now if you didn't have vintage photos, you could use pictures from a magazine or your own pictures, but we're starting out with some vintage ones, which I'll tell you where I got them from in a little while. So I'm starting in my Dina Wakley journal with some magenta and fuchsia paint, and I'm making it really watery, and I'm using a really large brush just to get that really soft look in the background. I'm then going in with my stencil and rubbing away some of the paint. This journal page was pre-gessoed, which is why that paint's lifting up really easily. I'm pretty sure that this journal page is actually a canvas page and a cotton rag page. So when I have two different substrates, I do tend to gesso them so they look the same, but when you feel them in real life, and you can see the threads coming off that. So I've got my splat box, which is just a cardboard box, and I'm using my Dina Wakley gloss acrylic sprays in the same colours I've used in the background. So this is just to get a bit of a different effect. Now the great thing about the gloss sprays is when you spray over the top of them, they absorb into the paper, and because it's an acrylic paint, it seals the paper so it stays on top, and you can get these beautiful drip effects. And if you have a look at the turquoise up in the top right hand corner, you'll see it's sort of resisted against itself and given those beautiful splatter patterns. So it's just a really interesting way to get a different effect on your page. You can still see that stenciling underneath. The colours blend together. Obviously the turquoise is a complementary colour to the analogous colours in the background, but it just gives a different effect. So now I'm going in with my favourite stencil, again in the turquoise, and making a bit of a background and just sort of moving it up and down, making the different shapes. Now this page was inspired by the wonderful Megan Quinlan, who has an amazing aesthetic, and her colour schemes and her artwork is just absolutely beautiful. She's one of my favourite artists on Instagram, and she's just started an Etsy shop. So Megan very kindly sent me some happy mail with some of her beautiful artwork and some of her collage packs, which included the vintage photos. So I had to use them in my journal, and because I got these beautiful images from her, I decided I wanted to sort of make an ode to Megan and use some of her the things I love about her pages, her color palettes, and the way she sort of constructs them. We both seem to adore this stencil. It seems to pop up on both her journal pages quite a lot, which is quite amusing. I do know I've convinced some other people that they must really like this stencil, because I know I've got a few people tracking them down and buying them and saying, oh, what have you done to me? So I do apologise for being an enabler. Just an FYI, if you watch Dina Wakley, apparently once her stencils are sold out, they're sold out. So if you do like this stencil, I would go and look for it, because once it's gone, and you won't be able to get it again. This little scallopy pattern is something that Megan does in a lot of her pages too. She's very good at doing these beautiful delicate little doodles on her page. I really struggle with that. I wanted to make it really look nice and loose and, just there in the background, but my patches tended to end up quite big and bulky. But I enjoyed doing it, and again, it's one of those things that not everything on your journal page needs to make sense. It doesn't all have to be grounded. It doesn't all have to be lined up. I know I'm going back in and adding more because I'm thinking there's a gap up there, I need to fill it in. You really don't. I just have a problem saying no and knowing when to stop. So just play around. And while I really love doing mark making on my pages, again, if you follow my channel for a while, I tend to do mark making all over the page. I don't leave it sort of just in small spots and that's it. I also, while I use white to do a lot of mark making, it's not usually the only color I use on the page. So again, I was trying to be really restrained, which is something that Megan is really good at. She is very restrained in what she does, which makes her work look extremely elegant and No. I would love to be Megan. So going in now, and I did want to extend the bodies of these figures. I couldn't quite work out how I was going to put them in. I didn't want them right down the bottom because then there would have been an awful lot of space up the top that didn't look balanced. So I want them to be slightly bigger than the leaves in the background. So what I did was got some vintage text. It's an old French dictionary which I just tore out and added onto the bottom of the page. For any people out here who remember Colleen Helmsmith, used to do an awful lot of collages like this. She used to use vintage photos and create little bodies for them, make them look really whimsical, and that's what this sort of reminds me of a lot. Because obviously the text stands out from the body itself, I'm using some of the colours from the body to sort of blend in. So I'm using some of that turquoise, using some of that pink, because I've got the pink on the other one, to blend the bodies together. I did start using the scribble sticks, but my collage was still a bit damp from the gel medium I'd used in the background, and it just didn't quite, I didn't get the intensity of colour I wanted, so I decided to go back in with acrylic paint. Again, if you water down acrylic paint, you can get a water-like effect in the background without it being water reactive. So, you know, that's why I love acrylic paint. You can do so much with it. I decided to go back in over the figures as well and do another bit of mark making. There are already some marks, particularly on this one, that I decided to extend down into the text as well. And I think I end up doing something similar on the other one. Perhaps not, maybe just darkening the edges. So I'm using the scribble sticks to darken up the edges. You can see on this page it had that little green shape in it as well, so I'm just going back in and adding that in. So it's all about kind of blending things in together. I'm also going in over the images and just sort of recoloring them a little bit. So that's a fun thing about vintage photos, particularly if they are black and white. You can go back in and recolor them. You can use distress markers, you can use distress inks, you can use scribble sticks, crayons, whatever you've got to recolor them. You'll notice I'm having to glue down the collage on the left-hand side a few times. The reason for that is because that's on a canvas page, and obviously the canvas takes longer to dry and stays damp longer. So damp surfaces and glue aren't great together. So use something that will actually glue it down properly, or be patient and wait, which again, for those people who follow me know I'm not patient, so I just add more glue on. Just going around the edge of the figures with some Stabilo oil pencil and water activating it, just to give the figures a bit of a shadow and pop them out from the background. So it's a really easy way to do that. So I was determined on this page I wasn't going to do much more. I wanted to leave it quite open with not much stuff on it. So I did decide though I wanted to put a quote on this page, and it took a little while to find one that I wanted. So I've gone into Pinterest and looked up, I think, ladies quotes or friends quotes, and came up with, "You and I are more than friends, we're a little gang or a little club," which I liked. And it appealed to me that, I don't know, Megan and I, when we've sort of been communicating a little bit, we've both got 2 young kids around the same age. We both enjoy art journaling. We both like doing all this. So it's kind of like having a small gang across the end of the world. We both sort of understand where each other's coming from, and it's just fun having someone, and I'm sure you find this too in the internet, and people you find on the internet, you know, people in your daily life probably don't understand what you're doing, but people on the internet do, because they do it too. So it's just finding people who have the same interests and loves and passions as you, and who understand that you need to own all the things, or, you know, how ridiculously obsessed you are with a particular artist or stencil or a product. So it's nice to have that understanding. So I hope you're all part of a small gang. You're certainly part of my gang, I appreciate each and every one of you coming along and playing along, which is lots of fun. Just again, because I couldn't help it, I'm going back in, I'm doing a little bit more doodling. I felt that the one on the left hand side needed something, as the one on the right had that little bit of mark making, bringing it together. The left hand side needed something too. So that's the end of the story. So I will leave in the description box below the link to Megan's Instagram page. I will also leave the link to her Etsy store so you can go and see some of these beautiful vintage photos yourself. But as I said, if you don't have vintage photos or can't get your hands on them, use a magazine image, use a picture of yourself, use some pictures of your family, do a colour copy of them if you're not sure about using your own, and do something fun with them in your journal. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this, and until next time, bye for now.